We begin the news with South Korea condemns Russia's defense deal with North Korea. 3 journalists killed in Israeli attack in South Lebanon. Biden to apologize for U.S. indigenous boarding school policy. Cyclone Dana hits India, raising flood risk, toppling trees. And Mozambique's ruling party claims victory in disputed polls. Stay with me for these and more stories. South Korea has voiced grave concern over Russia's bid to seal a defense deal with North Korea, which has been accused of supplying troops to Moscow for possible deployment in its war in Ukraine. On Thursday, Russia's lower house of parliament voted unanimously to endorse the treaty that commits Moscow and Pyongyang to providing mutual assistance if either side is attacked. The country's upper house is anticipated to follow suit soon. South Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said in a statement on Friday, Seoul strongly urges the immediate withdrawal of North Korean weapons and troops, the cessation of illegal cooperation. The government will work together with the international community to firmly respond to military cooperation between Russia and North Korea and take appropriate measures as their military collaboration progresses, according to the ministry. Seoul's enunciation comes a day after South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol criticized the deployment of North Korean troops to Russia as a provocation that threatens global security and raised the possibility of supplying Ukraine with weapons. On Wednesday, United States and South Korean officials said they were aware of the presence of 3,000 North Korean troops at several locations in Russia. Ukraine's military intelligence service said on Thursday that North Koreans trained in Russia had already been deployed in Russia's Kursk region, which borders Ukraine and has been the site of major fighting. Speaking in Kazan as the BRICS summit wrapped up on Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin sidestepped questions about satellite images appearing to show North Korean troops' movement. Putin, who signed a comprehensive strategic partnership with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un during a visit to Pyongyang in June, said according to report, it was our business how Moscow implemented the mutual defense clause. North Korea's mission to the United Nations in New York on Monday dismissed claims it had sent troops to Russia as groundless, stereotyped rumors. Talking Israel-Hezbollah conflict, an Israeli air raid has killed at least no less than 3 journalists as they slept in their accommodation in southern Lebanon, which a report say was a direct hit on an area removed from the continuing conflict between the Israeli military and Hezbollah. The airstrike hit a compound in Hasbaya, housing many journalists at about 4 a.m. local time on Friday, killing 2 cameramen and a technician. Lebanon's Information Minister Zayed Makari called the attack a war crime. Ghassan Binjido, the director of Al Mayadin, said in a statement that Israel's targeting of the journalist's residence was deliberate and there are injured journalists from other Arab channels. We hold the occupation fully responsible for this war crime in which journalist crews, including Al Mayadin team, were targeted. There was no immediate comment from the Israeli soldiers. Now, United States President Joe Biden will officially apologize for the government's role in forcing indigenous children into boarding schools where many were physically and sexually abused and closely 1,000 died. Biden said as he left the White House on Thursday for Arizona, "I'm doing something I should have done a long time ago to make a formal apology to the Indian nations for the way we treated their children for so many years." Between 1869 and the 1960s, over 18,000 indigenous children, some as young as 4, were forcibly taken from their families and put into the boarding school system. The schools, often run by Christian churches, were part of the forced assimilation policy launched by Congress in 1819 as an effort to civilize Native Americans, Native Alaskans, and Native Hawaiian peoples. Children were beaten, sexually abused, and barred from speaking their language and acting in any way that reflected their culture. Many didn't see their families for years. The White House, in a press release, said Biden believes that to usher in the next era of the federal tribal relationships, we need to fully acknowledge the harms of the past. It documented closely 1,000 deaths and 74 grave sites at over 500 boarding school locations. One of the recommendations of the final report was an acknowledgement of an apology for the boarding school era. Halland said she took that to Biden, who agreed that it was essential. Haaland will join Biden during his first diplomatic visit to a tribal nation as president as he delivers his speech at the Gila River Indian Community, 48 kilometers 30 miles south of Phoenix. The apology comes in the last weeks of the U.S. presidential race as Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign needs hundreds of millions of dollars on ads aiming Native American voters in battleground states including Arizona and North Carolina. Meanwhile, on climate crisis, the authorities said Cyclone Dana uprooted trees and power lines after making landfall on India's eastern coast, cautioning of heavy rainfall and intense winds. No less than 1.1 million people in the states of Odisha and West Bengal were relocated to storm shelters, according to a report, before the cyclone's landfall after midnight on Friday, with maximum sustained winds of about 110 kilometers per hour and gusts of up to 120 kilometers per hour. Dana was moving inland over the northern coast of Odisha as of mid-morning on Friday. The India Meteorological Department (IMD) said it is anticipated to weaken gradually into a depression in the next 6 hours. No deaths have been reported so far. Odisha Chief Minister Mohan Charan Niji was quoted as saying, "Numerous trees and electric poles are uprooted," he added. Makeshift shops on the sprawling beach have also been blown away. Dana also flooded parts of the coast after stoking a rise in sea levels of up to 1.15 meters, that's 3.75 feet. The Sundarbans, the biggest mangrove forest in the world, was hit by a gale force wind that caused hundreds of trees to be uprooted, West Bengal Minister Bankim Chandra Hazra said, according to report. The cyclone also damaged hundreds of homes, blowing off roofs in coastal areas, according to him. Since Thursday night, major airports have been shut in West Bengal's capital, Kolkata, India's third largest city, and a key travel hub, which was lashed by heavy rains. Scientists have cautioned that storms are becoming more powerful as the world heats up due to climate change, driven by burning fossil fuels. Warmer ocean surfaces release more water vapor, which provides additional energy for storms, strengthening winds. A warming atmosphere also permits storms to hold more water, boosting heavy rainfall, but better forecasting and more effective evacuation planning have also dramatically lessened death tolls. India's eastern coast have long been prone to cyclones, and the number of intense storms is increasing along the country's coast. On elections, on Thursday, election officials in Mozambique announced that the ruling party, Frelimo, has won the country's disputed elections, extending its 5-decade grip on power. The party's candidate, Daniel Chapo, will replace President Felipe Nyusi, who is stepping down after the maximum of 2 terms. Since its independence from Portugal in 1975, Frelimo has ruled the country, and the polls were extensively expected to return it to power. The Electoral Commission said Chapo had won 70% of the vote. His closest challenger, Venancio Mondlane, who was supported by the Podemos party, got 20%. Mondlane displaced ex-rebel movement and opposition party Renamo, whose candidate came in third this time around. Amid claims of fraud and vote rigging from election observers and the opposition, there have been violent protests in many towns following the announcement of the results. European Union election observers cast doubts on the integrity of the poll, saying it did not meet international standards. They said there had been irregularities during counting and unjustified alteration of election results. Opposition parties have also cried fraud, and nationwide protests on Monday called for by the Podemos were dispersed by police firing live rounds and tear gas. Mondlane has again called for a nationwide strike on Thursday and Friday in protest against the alleged rigging. Two prominent party figures last week, including Podemos lawyer Alvinos Diaz, who was also Moldane's advisor, were gunned in Maputo by unknown assailants, ratcheting up tensions. There are fears now that the protest could turn bloody. He has until December to contest the results. Chapo will be officially sworn into office in January 2025. The 9th October elections were also parliamentary and provisional polls. In the legislative elections, Frelimo also obtained a significant victory. It secured the majority of seats in the Assembly of the Republic, boosting its political control in Mozambique. I'll bring you more stories, but after this break, please don't go anywhere. You're welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Now, stories from Nigeria, and we begin with a sad turn of event. Police fear all 8 passengers dead in Bonny chopper crash. The Rivers State Police Command has stated that all 8 passengers inside the helicopter crash that happened in Port Harcourt, Rivers State capital, on Thursday may have died. The incident happened at 11:22 a.m. local time along the waterways in Port Harcourt when the helicopter, a Psycho Sky SK-76 with registration 5NBQG and operated by East Wind Aviation, took off from Port Harcourt Military Base to FPSO Numis Atan oil rig. A spokesperson for the Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Odutayo Oloshiyi, said a total of 8 persons were confirmed on board. The aircraft ditched into the waters close to Bonifinima in the Atlantic Ocean, the authorities said in a statement, adding that rescue efforts have been activated. However, in an update, the Rivers State Police Command said in a statement by its public relations officer, SP Grace Iringe Koko, noted that all the passengers may have lost their lives in the tragic incident. The update comes after President Bola Tinubu ordered an intensified search and directed the military to join search for the passengers involved in the crash. Now, CBN says all Naira notes remain valid indefinitely. The Apex Bank has clarified that the old series of 200 Naira, 500 Naira and 1,000 Naira banknotes will remain valid indefinitely, rebuting claims that the notes will cease to be legal tender by December 31st, 2024. On Thursday, in a statement released by the Acting Director of Corporate Communications, Sidi Hakama, the Central Bank of Nigeria highlighted that such reports are false and intended to disrupt the nation's payment system. The statement reads, and I quote, "The attention of the Central Bank of Nigeria has been drawn to discussions at different fora suggesting that the old series of the 200 Naira, 500 Naira and 1,000 Naira banknotes shall cease to be legal tender on December 31st, 2024. We wish to state categorically that such claims are false and calculated to disrupt the country's payment system. For the avoidance of doubt, the order of the Supreme Court of Nigeria on Wednesday, November 29th, 2023, granting the prayer of the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice to extend the use of all Naira banknotes ad infinitum of subsides. The Central Bank of Nigeria stated its commitment to ensuring that all Nigerian banknotes, including both the old and redesigned series, remain in circulation. The Apex Bank noted in its statement, similarly, the CBN's directive to all its branches to continue to issue and accept all denominations of Nigerian banknotes, old and redesigned, to and from deposit money banks remains in force. The bank reminded the public that the Supreme Court's order for the continued use of all Naira notes alongside the redesigned versions is still very much in effect. And finally, on the news, presidency defends Tinubu as federal government cuts ministers' convoys and aids. On Wednesday, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's cabinet reshuffle, which had Ogun State reportedly producing 4 ministers, the highest by a state in the cabinet, has triggered reactions across the country. In a major cabinet rejig during the 19th Federal Executive Council meeting at the State House in Abuja, Tinubu approved the reassignment of 10 ministers to new portfolios, discharged 5 others, and nominated 7 new ministerial appointees for onward transmission to the Senate for confirmation. These came as the president renamed the Ministry of Niger Delta Development to the Ministry of Regional Development, scrapped the Ministry of Sports Development, and matched the Ministries of Tourism and Arts and Culture to become the Federal Ministry of Art, Culture, Tourism and the Creative Economy. The 7 new ministers pending their confirmation by the Senate are Dr. Jumoke Oduwole from Ogun State as Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Nentawe Gilwada, Plateau State as Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Mahamadou Dingyadi Sokoto as Minister of Labor and Employment, Bianca Odumegu Ojuko from Imo as Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Idi Maiha Kaduna as Minister of Livestock Development, Yusuf Atta of Kano as Minister of State Housing and Urban Development, and Dr. Suwaiba Ahmed Kano as Minister of State for Education. The incoming Dr. Jumoke Uduoli joins Wole Edun, Minister of Finance, Dr. Adekunle Salako, the new Minister of State for Health, who was previously Minister of State, Environment, and Bosun Tijani, Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, as Ministers of Ogun Extraction. While the appointments of the 4 Ogun ministers raised eyebrows in some quarters, with some of the opinion that it fell short of the federal character criteria for appointments, Chairman, Senate Committee on Federal Character, Allwell Onyeso, PDP River East, acknowledged that while the federal character was a constitutional matter, it wasn't the sole criterion for selecting ministers and other high-level public office holders. Another look at the top story. South Korea condemns Russia's defense deal with North Korea. 3 journalists killed in Israeli attack in South Lebanon. Biden to apologize for U.S. indigenous boarding school policy. Cyclone Dana hits India, raising flood risks, toppling trees, and Mozambique's ruling party claims victory in disputed poll. That's all in the news. Thanks for watching. Enjoy a beautiful weekend ahead.